I think we can all agree that it is such a great feeling when you get a combination in your game. So basically where you have to solve a few moves to get to the tactic or to the outcome that you want. And of course, a lot of chess books have puzzles based on actual games. But let's talk about studies. These are composed positions, and there is such a beauty in it where each piece is deliberately placed in a certain position, and you, as the solver, need to figure out what's going on. In today's videos, we're going to look at some beautiful studies and also books where you can get your hands on them using the Forward Chess app, an online interactive tool for chess books. So stick around. So most studies take place in the endgame or based on the endgame with not a lot of pieces on the board. And we'll be taking a look at a few endgame books. But the first one I want to show you is from Jennifer Shahade's Play Like a Champion. And this position, it's a funky one. And a little something about the author. This was composed by none other than Sophia Polgar, who is, of course, one sister of the trio Polgar sisters. Of course, they don't need an introduction. But what I really like about this is that Sophia was only 7 years old when she composed this study. So you can be any age to compose a study as long as it's logical and there's some thought involved. So in this position here, this is white to play and mate in 2. You can pause the video, take a moment to find the mate in 2. Now, the solution here, white plays a waiting move, which is queen b2. The idea is that black only has these 2 rooks to move, and wherever they go, there will be a pawn checkmate or the pawn contributing to the checkmate. And she even wrote about this problem, saying, "In my childhood, there was a special theme that really got my interest. Every checkmate was given by pawns." So this is the theme she was going for in this position. Of course, if black plays rook d4, we'll checkmate with the pawn, rook b4, checkmates. Not with the pawn, but the pawn is moving to give the checkmate by the queen. And of course, pawn checkmate. Well, the pawn moves to checkmate, so I guess this is her point, is that the pawn is just involved in every mate that there is. So really there's no response here for black that is any good. Even if I take this pawn over here, I can still move this pawn up and it's going to be checkmate since this rook over here is pinned and the king has nowhere to go. Next up, let us take a look at a more difficult position. Of course, this was created by a 7-year-old, but nonetheless, it's really cool. And Shahade has a whole chapter dedicated to problems. So this is just one of the many, and quite a few other than tactics in the whole book. I've worked through this book, I think, twice now, and really, really nice positions, and including the section on studies. Let us go on to the next book, which is Endgame Labyrinths by Nielsen and Aagaard. Now, this book was specifically, it kept in mind the fact that a lot of studies you're going to encounter are very long-winded, and I mean, you just go for hours and hours. And to some extent, there is a point in that. Studies are not something you do at a tournament when you're preparing for a game or trying to get sharp. You do quick tactics for that. But when you're at home really working on your chess, studies are what you can really spend a lot of time on. And again, many great books really dedicated to this idea of studies and making the reader or the learner really dig into the position and go through every single aspect of the position. And we're going to talk a little bit more about endgame studies now. So in Endgame Labyrinths, there's a whole section where they talk about the conventions of what should be included. Let's take a look. So, convention 1. Traditionally, endgame studies do not begin in mid-action. By the way, really cool feature. Here you can mark your selection in forward chess. There was also analysis tools, highlights on the board, you name it, any way to study and read a chess book. The best way is on forward chess, no doubt. So what they're saying is that the scene is set in the beginning, and the first move won't be like immediate capture, or it won't be, an action type move. It's not going to be an obvious check or pawn move. So this is why, you need to create your starting point for yourself and understand what is happening in the position. Usually you're going to be leading up to the action. Second point, the first move of a study cannot be a capture. Of course, this doesn't apply to all studies, but most of the time this is, just because in general, when you're doing tactics, I suppose that you are always looking for captures, checks, and threats at first, right? And this is not what we're doing in studies. The point is to take more time to understand the position, and there will be some exceptions, of course, but most of the times it's just not going to be the obvious move. The king cannot be in check in the initial position, and all pieces must move during the solution. So this fourth point is not true to, all studies, but some of the ones we're going to look at now do include this. Just because every piece in a study is there for a reason. In a game, we could have a pawn on a random square because it's been there the whole game. But in a study, every piece is deliberate. So there are a few more conventions here that you can read through, but basically they just talk about what should be included in a study or not. And I like this not for those who are aspiring composers or just want to test out the waters of what a study is. There are some guidelines that help you to know what to look for. So let's dig into an actual position. In this book, they have all sorts of themes. Just look how many there are. Brain crushers. I don't think we're going to do that one right now, but I do enjoy knight endgames a lot. And again, in studies, we have all different kinds of levels. You can have easy, medium, difficult. Let us go for both. So let's take a look at this knight endgame position. Again, as I said, in studies, every piece is deliberately placed. This isn't just an endgame that came up. So one way to look at it is to understand why these pieces are here. We're playing for white. These pawns are obviously important to take away the king's squares. Our pawn wants to promote. We can't do it just yet because the black knight will fork us and we will lose our piece. So let's take a look. You can try and pause this position and figure out how does white win the game. First move for white, king b8. Now, of course, you need to look at every single option, every single response there is. And I guess in studies, this is also why it makes sense to have fewer pieces. Otherwise, you're just going to have someone sitting for literal days understanding or looking at every single option. So in this case, knight a6, knight c6, king b6, king a6. Let's look at the most obvious, knight a6 check. The idea is that white is bringing the king around. King a7, knight goes back. And now, I hope you saw this in your solution. The beauty of this tactic comes into play, and that is that white promotes, but to a knight, because now there is no fork that black is giving, and we are going to mate. The black king, as we established in the beginning, doesn't have squares to move to, so a mate is inevitable. Knight c2 and knight c6, checkmate. Let's take a look at what would have happened if black played something else after king b8, let's say knight c6. Now king to c8, king b4. Of course, if king b6, we're promoting, and our king, let's just take a look at that. Black takes, and this is just going to be power play of the kings. Our king is going to reach the c5 pawn, and we're going to promote with the c pawn. Let's go back. So let's look at king b4 instead by black. King c7. Again, we don't want to promote. Now, if you promote, the king is further to the pawns, and now white's going to lose. So instead, after king b4, white comes down, king c7, all waiting moves. You take my pawn, I'm taking your knight, and then promoting. So there's nothing much you can do. Time, tempo is very important factor to consider in studies. So if we go back, king b8, we looked at knight a6, knight c6, king b6, king c8, knight a6, again promoting, and the king is not going to get any further. So this is a bit of a, I would say, pattern we've seen in the study, is that the black king, once it comes forward, it is going to be bad in the long run, because this means we can just trade the pawn for the knight and our king will win the power play. So this is quite a cool study that we had to really see everything until the end, but understand the positioning of the king and where the checkmate is going to happen. Did you solve it? Let us know in the comments. Now I want to go on to, well, once again, about this book. Really, really nice, all kinds of topics. And as you can see, the solution wasn't 100 moves, you know, it was simple, it was straightforward, and the analysis they give in the book is also very straightforward. They just tell you what it is. There are different levels of studies. This was a number 2, but you get all the way up until 5. So really for all levels of chess, which is great, because you can start on the easier ones just to warm up, or if that's your level, you start there and you gradually just increase your amounts of stars and increase the difficulty of solving studies. But definitely a book I would recommend. There are so many great positions and I would urge you to solve them. Our third book we're going to look at is by Jan Timman and called The Art of the Endgame. Also beautiful Endgame Studies. This book is fairly new. Really, Endgame Labyrinths, Play Like a Champion, both newer books. So you're going to see older studies, but also anything that is the latest topic on topic in chess. But I guess studies they're still as popular today, but not as much as they used to be, which is quite sad, because you really see the beauty of chess, as I've mentioned in the beginning. And I know there are like study world championships. Nielsen is of Endgame Labyrinths is a world champion in composing, and I think that's a really cool thing to have. I mean, even if your tournament play is not the same level, you still can understand chess in a different way and appreciate it in a different way, because not everyone can do this, and I think it's a cool skill to have, which we're going to talk about in a minute if you want to start composing studies yourself. Back to our book, we are here in a miniature study, so these are smaller ones which we've been looking at. Some studies really can go on for long, but again, this is good. Do this in your free time at home. Let's look at this position right here. Take time, pause the position, pause the video, see if you can solve it. You are playing as white here, and you have to be very careful, because if you lose your pawn and a piece, this is going to be a draw. Even if you're trading, we do not want to draw here, we want to win. So what does white do? So the solution here for white is king d1. The reason is that we're opening up our bishop to pin this knight on e4. Of course, the black king comes forward to defend the knight, but now our king comes up Again, we were avoiding the dark squares to avoid the checks. So our king comes up to place pressure on the pinned piece. Because this bishop is in the way, black cannot play king e5 to unpin the king. But black is going to attempt to grab this pawn on h4. And that's why black plays bishop f6. Now, king f3, of course, placing pressure on the pinned piece. If you looked at the study, spent enough time, you would have found this idea. But what happens next is a little bit more of the difficult part, I suppose. Because you have to see this move by black, which is bishop takes h4. And as in chess, if you're doing tactics, you always have to look for the best move your opponent has. Naturally, in studies, it's going to be the same. You're thinking for both sides and you're finding out a way out for the side that you are told to play for. But again, you have to find the best way for both sides. The idea of capturing on h4 is that after this move, knight takes h4, black plays king g5, attacks a white knight, gets out of the pin, and this is most likely going to be a draw. I mean, two pieces against a knight, this checkmate is not coming. You take my knight, I take your knight, you move your knight, I move my knight. So let's go back. After bishop takes h4, what should white do? Well, this is, I always call the second part of the study, and that is white captures this knight. Check. King g5. Now, again, we cannot capture this bishop because then it's going to be a draw. So what to do? Maybe take a moment to pause if you didn't get this far. But the solution here is, well, we need to understand that this black bishop doesn't have any squares to go to. So white plays the beautiful bishop d5, anticipating black's king h5 move. And this is all black has, so our bishop swoops on over to f7 check, king g5, and now a beautiful waiting move because we know that black's only safe square for the king was h5. The bishop goes and sits comfortably on e8, and black will lose the bishop. I hope you can do your bishop and knight checkmate because this position is based on that. You've gotten so far to win the piece, and then you follow it up with a bishop and knight mate. Suppose we will have a different video for this, but this is what we call zugzwang. And black doesn't want to make a move. Any move black makes is going to be a loss, and we're going to grab the bishop. But yeah, this was really cool position. I liked it a lot. Again, we have all kinds of themes in the book, miniature studies, rook versus bishop, all the kinds of endgame things that you should know. Building a fortress. Fortresses in endgames, I don't know if you've ever worked on it, but it is not easy. And if we put this in studies, also not easy. But hey, chess is not easy, and it's a great way to improve. Now, the final book I want to talk about is the Pawn Study Composer's Manual, which is actually a pretty old book, and this is just a revised edition. Now, this is basically a book that doesn't just give you studies to solve, but it completely dissects the idea of creating a study and helps you to understand themes and gives you ideas of how to actually write or compose a study for yourself. And I mean, this book it's done really, really great. It's a favorite of many. And if you want to read the book, that is fine. But if you want to, I mean, it's a standalone book to solve studies with. But it is also a great book to have if you want to dip your toes into actually composing studies, which again, very cool skill to have. We won't look at any particular positions here. I just want to show you the book and how many themes there are. Pawn studies, it's based on pawn studies, hence the name, Pawn Study Composer's Manual. And there's just everything from under promotions, which we just saw, pawn checkmates, which we just saw, zugzwangs, which we just saw, and really the whole shebang. We have luring into check, anti-check retreat. Just, I can go on about these and we can go into it, but then this video is going to be 2 hours long. So I urge you to go ahead and look at these books. Of course, Forward Chess is what we've been using. It's been really, really useful. If we type in here, Pawn Study Composer's Manual, any book that you get on Forward Chess, you can view the sample. Now, if you already own the book, of course, you're going to have everything here, but a sample gives you a little sneak peek about what the book is about. So in this case, if we have the same position and you don't have access to the full book, you can get little glimpses and still use all the features of Forward Chess, such as Guess the Move, which puts you in a position playing against the computer, so you can actually play these positions out. Highlight bar, so I can use arrows to highlight how I want my pieces to go, or, you know, highlighting certain squares. And just lots and lots of cool features. There's also engine analysis here. And all of this is included in the actual little sneak peek, the samples. So if you're not sure about Forward Chess yet, try the samples out for really any book you want. And I mean, there are many, 1,009 books that Forward Chess has, and all sorts of categories. So really all the top books that you have, all the top authors, of course, Carsten Hansen's, there's Lakdawala. You name it, it will probably be here if it's a popular chess book. So that is all for today. Let us know in the comments what the solutions are if you found them. And of course, let us know what you want us to talk about next. Until then, bye.